Right, it's quite an emotional story, that one. We'll definitely continue monitoring what transpires in terms of the latest developments around that. Allow us to shift focus, gentlemen, right now to the latest political developments that have happened over the course of the weekend. And this is one major question, that is the minds of political pundits. Just what could be the political capital in an endorsement of any presidential hopeful by President Uhuru Kenyatta? Well, the question is in the minds of Kenyans following a series of what appears to be events touted as competition by key rivals of Deputy President William Ruto to catch the eye of President Uhuru Kenyatta in the race to the House on the Hill. The latest of which was the recent meeting at State House, Mombasa. Now, on House of Cards, Murimi Mwangi revisits past successions and explains the tough balance between the power of the state on the Kenyatta succession race and the potential incumbency burden likely to confront all presidential hopefuls.
In the race to the House on the Hill, pronouncements and attempted persuasions have been unmatched.
Saa hii mimi ndio nimekaribia. Sasa wakiniunga mkono iko makosa. Sasa iko haja gani ya kusungukana tena? Simu nisaidie tu nifike haraka hivi.
Mimi ndio na wananchi. Mimi nimesema sijatangaza mimi nataka kusimama urais. Nilitangaza.
But it is this meeting at State House Mombasa that had gotten tongues wagging. In attendance were former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, his 2017 running mate Kalonzo Musyoka, and coalition partners Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula. With KANU National Chairman Gideon Moi in tow under President Uhuru Kenyatta's chairmanship. A meeting widely touted as Kenyatta's attempt to manage his own transition. But what clout does he have?
If you are president and you have an opportunity to bring people together so that they approach the elections not in a divisive manner, but in a way that will bring the country together, that will be the desire of the president, and I know that is the desire of the President Uhuru Kenyatta.
We have remained an opposition party and we have conducted ourselves as such. So, of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta has a vote, just like any other Kenyan, and he might decide that he wants to vote. At the end of the day, in the ballot box, Uhuru has to vote for someone. So if he has decided that his vote is going to someone, then you respect his decision.
Yet history has disapproved Kenyan presidential incumbents in outright endorsement of their preferred successors. Best illustrated in Uhuru's own unsuccessful 2002 stab at the presidency, then with retired President the late Daniel Arap Moi's blessings, an anticlimax to an opposition charm offensive which Moi had begun shortly after the 1997 polls by striking a cooperation deal with Odinga, then NDP party leader. A deal which had at the time caught off guard opposition leaders Moi Kibaki and the late Michael Kijana Wamalwa, with whom Odinga was to initially mount a delegitimization campaign against Moi's election. Yet like classic echoes from the past, it is Raila again now leading the opposition charge to the inner government circles in what appears like a concerted state effort to block Deputy President William Ruto's first charge to State House. So what's in the cards?
What people should be asking is why is he opposed to a document that seems to be spreading power? Why is he opposed to a document that seems to be advocating for inclusivity? Then the opposite can only be the truth. That he would rather exercise power absolutely and have proper control rather than disperse power.
Yet also unsafe in the potential incumbency burden is Ruto, constitutionally being the principal assistant to the president, a state of affairs some analysts say could have informed recent Ruto's concerted efforts to play an outsider within government.
We have now more rebels outside the party than those who are inside the party. And these are the consequences. I can tell you today that it could be this could be the last moments in Jubilee that we are seeing candidates are even actually contesting on this party.
I don't think that there is a problem, especially with a president who is leaving, to try and leave behind a united country. For us, we see the efforts that he's making from the perspective of someone who is eager to leave a united country, as opposed to someone who's looking to endorse someone. Because he understands that he has only one vote.
And with the Court of Appeal ruling on the recently nullified Building Bridges initiative set for Friday, the coming week presents loads of anxieties and critical decisions as the Kenyatta succession enters a critical phase. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News.
So fundamental questions raised by Murimi Mwangi, even as he explains perhaps the president's interest in managing his succession. Let's begin on that point. Agwanda, why is the president so vested in managing his succession from where you sit? And what is his legacy? As President Kenyatta leaves office, what will we remember him for?
Jesse, it's a very critical time for the country, not just the president himself. It is critical.
Okay, Agwanda, allow me to cut you short. We'll definitely get back to you. Let me cross over to Kioko. Just briefly, why is the president vested in his succession? And perhaps what will we remember him most for? Is it the Big Four agenda? Is it the uniting factor in his second term administration? What say you?
I think just like any outgoing president is keen on ensuring that the succession is properly managed. Of course, the president as an individual has his interest in who occupies the seat when he leaves. But in the case of traditions that we've seen in our country also, remember in 2002 when the late President Moi was attempting to was exiting, he attempted to impose the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta then as his preferred candidate. And this created a tiff in Kanu and the breakup of Kanu, and the old guards in Kanu left and went and supported Mwai Kibaki in NAC. In 2013, because we must look at it at the succession periods. In 2013, again, there was an attempt by the former President Mwai Kibaki to support Mudavadi. It backfired tremendously. Okay. Remember, before that pronouncement, there were indications. Then the Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta went to Mudavadi's house, and they signed an agreement. And after 1 week, Uhuru Kenyatta came with that mademonic statement of his. So those two episodes are very key in defining. And one of the things that happened, which is very critical for us, is that in 2002, Uhuru Kenyatta was labeled a project by Raila Odinga. I think it is Senator James Orengo who called Uhuru Kenyatta Cerelac baby. And that tag of political projects acquired a negative moniker. In 2013, again when Musalia was coming out of the ropes, he was referred to as a project. And it backfired. People don't like projects. I think that is the one thing that we must understand critically.
Okay.
In this particular instance, the breakaway of Ruto from Uhuru means he's an anti-establishment person, and therefore the pro-establishment candidate is appearing to be Raila Odinga. I think that is the negativity associated with political endorsement, especially by the incumbent. You appear to be a pro-establishment. Now, this establishment of Uhuru Kenyatta, that the deputy is running away, key members of his central province voting bloc are running away from him, you must ask yourself, how is it that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga will want to associate with a ship that does not appear to be floating, a ship that is sinking? Those are fundamental questions that must be asked. But in terms of value proposition, I think it is fair to hang on. In terms of political proposition, I think it is best that the president focuses on the economic agenda.
Okay.
The Big Four was a good thing. The achievements that they did in the first term that got them re-elected, even though some of us did not consider them of material benefit to majority of Kenyans, there's a part of Kenyans that say this is what we wanted and they voted for them. So on the economic front, and the Big Four thing, I think the president should have pushed more on it. And in the remaining period of 15 months or 12 months, the president needs to focus more on it because it is the economy that brings us together. Politics has a tendency of dividing us. And as it is right now, there's a caliber or there's a portion of Kenyans who are saying they are pro-Ruto. There's a portion of Kenyans who will say they are pro-Kalonzo. There's a section of Kenya that will say they are pro-Raila. So you cannot divide all of us. We cannot create a homogeneous society within this remaining period. We are entering into a phase where division is real. People will vote to their preferred candidate. Okay. So if the president uplifts himself from the heterogeneous nature or the divisive nature of our politics and focuses on the issues that unite the country, which is the economic agenda, uplifting of the ordinary people's economic welfare, then it will have a tendency of bringing people together. And then ultimately, the best gift he can give Kenya is to ensure, just like Kibaki did in 2013, to create a conducive environment for all actors to campaign without harassment, a conducive environment for the IEBC to conduct elections so that the outcomes of those elections are to a fair extent non-contestable, and finally, to guarantee peaceful transfer of power to whoever Kenyans will have elected. Okay. I think that handing over process, you can see what is happening in Zambia today, since Thursday. Yeah, the incumbent sitting president, and this is not the first time that is happening in Zambia. Okay. They have a tendency of kicking people out, but the incumbent is holding on. Yeah. Yeah, and that in itself creates unnecessary tensions to the people. So for legacy issues, focus on the economy, leave this politics alone because these are competitors, you cannot force them to unite. Then ensure that our security apparatus, IEBC operates normally, we get the fair result, and whoever Kenyans elect, President Uhuru, constitutionally actually, it's not wishful thinking, constitutionally ensures a peaceful transfer of power. Okay. That way we grow as a country.
Okay. Gwanda, back to the question I had asked, but what's President Kenyatta's legacy, even in the midst of managing his succession?
You know, one thing that President Kenyatta, I believe, wants for this country is a transition devoid of the Supreme Court theatrics, devoid of somebody coming into power and saying, all these things you did for the last 10 years is trash. We are starting afresh. Of somebody coming and saying, your people stole money if they did, and therefore we are pursuing them. Of somebody bringing policy that will not just hurt him as an individual, but hurt his, office and the people that he has served with. I think that's the number one fundamental interest that he has in this transition. But as a young man also, I think he wants to live in this country for the next 30, 40 years, if God gives him that time, when he's 90 and 100, and knowing that the country that he led for 10 years is continuing unabated. In my view, that will be his interest. Okay. But I am privy to some of the statements that he's also made in the past. And I think he's gone public and said he will not leave this country to a thief. I think he said that in public. He will say he cannot leave this country to somebody who will bring destruction. And Jesse, I go into those words because those words to me means a lot to me. If he was referring to the person of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, I can only say this to that statement, that he is having the instrument of power in this country. He is open and he receives all the intelligence in this country. For a president to say such a thing on somebody in this country serving in his government, maybe the information he has, none of us has. And for that reason, perhaps he might think of somebody else. And how many more information does he have against the person of the Deputy President that none of us has, that makes him think that perhaps he's not the right person to be the President of the Republic of Kenya? That's not to say that there are people who will still vote for the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. But when I look at the election process, and Kyoko will agree with me on this, in the last 15 years, we have not had something that has not been contested on, especially on the presidential campaign and presidential results and presidential announcement in terms of their credibility, their accountability, their free and fair, as we call it every single day. And the question is, do we want to see that in 2022? I am for any discourse, any coalition of people in mind that says, can we offer free and fair election in 2022? And if that is the only legacy this government will leave for the Republic of Kenya and for the citizenry of this country, so be it. Because I don't want to see a situation where presidential aspirants in 2022 are going to go to court again. I don't want to see a situation, a replica of 2007, 2013, 2017. I don't want to see that situation. I want to see a situation where the winner says, I have won, and the loser says, we will support you. And man, we've been in this field long enough. Do you have any place where you can put us? I believe the government has so many places for everybody that is playing key political role in this country at this moment. And they can be somewhere, whether chairman of the board, as a dignitary position where you sit and go home and take care of your cattle. But I think the president is concerned that if perhaps he leaves this nation into the hands of people he perceives as thieves and people he perceives as people that will loot this country, then he will never have peace in his heart. And I think that is his interest. The question is, as Kyoko rightfully said, when a president gives you a support and says, I want you to be the president, is he setting you up, or is he genuinely going to support you? That should be the fundamental question. But my answer to that is, President Uhuru Kenyatta has said that in the first 5 years, perhaps he didn't do so much. But since sort of they parted ways with the deputy president in terms of working together, that he's done so much in 4 years as compared to the 5 years that he was there before. President Uhuru Kenyatta still has supporters. Whether it is in Central Province where everybody thinks there's an issue, it still have people. I talked to some people who come from Central Province, and I'm not saying all of them might still support him. No, some of them might be unhappy. But those few that will follow him, and I remember this gentleman saying, you know, we have a leader. And for now, President Uhuru Kenyatta is our leader in Central Province. When he gives us direction, we will follow. Might be not all of them, but there are people who will follow his will. There are people who will follow his preferred candidate. And you know what? In politics, and especially presidential election in this country, you need all the votes. Because if you don't get all those votes, all those 50 plus 1, then you don't become the president of the Republic of Kenya.
And that begs the question, just briefly, do you think that's Raila's wildcard now? Because he's found the secret of climbing the mountain. Is he banking on Uhuru Kenyatta's perhaps hand to bless him in terms of going forth into the vote-rich region? Well, what's your take, Agwanda, just briefly?
I look at the handshake as a thing that has come or came at the right time. President Uhuru Kenyatta was supported by the previous regime, and they supported him hugely, and he became the president. The only transition perhaps that I saw that was a little bit free of hand, of hard, you know, what I say, heavy hand from the government was 2002. Raila Amolo Odinga has been in this quest as an opposition leader, as a fierce opposition leader. And he's done his bit. He's done it very, very well. He's been recognized not just locally by being given votes in our general elections, but also internationally as a man that has stood with the people. And he was never in bed with the government to support him. In fact, if anything, he only worked for a short time and pulled out as soon as he realized that that was not the interest of the government he was serving. I think it is high time for him. It was high time for him to realize that perhaps not working with the government in this country and in many African governments, it is perhaps a little bit difficult to extend the position of the presidency of this country. And for that reason, perhaps he saw that he needed to be a little bit softer to government for him to get that support. Remember, government is run by individuals, and these politicians have interests. They have interests in issues of economy, they have interests in issues of family, they have interests in many, many other things. And so you cannot separate politicians from their political interests. And if the interests of some of the people, and some of them call them deep state, in terms of 2022, really think that he will be their president, so be it.
Okay, let's see how it all transpires. Allow us to take a short break. When we come back, I'll rebound with Kyoko's thoughts on the current discourse we're having. Even as Raila is climbing the mountain, we'll talk about One Kenya Alliance and the meeting they're set to have just this week. And also, gentlemen, this Friday is set to be quite heated. The BBI ruling, the courts will decide whether to clear or block the road to a referendum.